republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
On this 4th of July weekend in which we have so much celebration and the Red, White, and Kaboom festivities tonight, it is good to have you here, and we appreciate you working this Monday in as a tweener in your schedules. We're going to begin with a presentation by Mark Farrington on workforce transformation and leveraging the pivot. And of course, this is a topic that is on all of our minds in terms of how do we utilize people well, not only in the private sector, but certainly the public sector in changing times that change dramatically. So Mark, thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, commissioners, staff, members of the public. I'm Mark Farrington, Director of Human Resources and Civil Services for the city, and I am very pleased to lead this annual update. Last year on July 5th, a mere 365 days ago, I gave a post-pandemic glimpse into the workforce makeover occurring across America and what was being done within Lakeland to address those challenges. That update presentation was titled Pivot or Perish, as the options available to mature organizations across the country in view of what the country was experiencing. The takeaway I ended with was the only viable option and was that we pivot. And today's Leveraging the Pivot update is to provide insight on what we've done and how we're responding in a very dynamic environment. And for the past 3 years on this week, you've had to listen to me give you my overview of what's happened and of what's going on. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by two of the managers that work with me, Cindy Marsh, who leads the Employee and Assessment Services team, as well as Comp and Class. She's 12 days short of 8 years with the city, and she has about 22 years of HR experience. I'm also very pleased to have Kathy McNellis. Kathy doesn't get a lot of limelight, and Kathy's been with us with the city for 20 years. She brings to an additional 17 years of HR experience. Both Cindy and Kathy both have public sector and private sector experience. And with the changes we're going through right now as a country, as an employers, that line that was very firmly established between public sector and private sector is very blurry in terms of how you get people, where do you source them, what do we have to do to retain them. And I'm very pleased to have these two share their insights. They're the architects, they're the implementers, they're the ones that partner very strategically and tactically with the operating units to make sure that we are meeting their needs, and we're putting forth ambassadors, your ambassadors to the community in order to meet the community's needs. The HR organization strives to be a trusted advisor and strategic business partner, fully engaged with City of Lakeland leaders. You can see our mission statement, but the HR managers, the team and I operate on a continuum that runs from trusted advisor, strategic business partner, to necessary evil, to obstacle to overcome. And we strive to stay on that top end of that continuum. Strategic business partner. We don't do HR to our operating departments. We partner with them on solutions and solve for outcomes that are going to affect their ability to meet the needs of the city and of the clients we serve. Just a quick look at the Human Resources Civil Services Organization chart. On the far right is the Employee and Labor Relations Policy Division. This unit's charter is to align and incorporate employee-related statutory guidelines and into applicable policies and practices, not only to the letter of the law, but on how it relates to us being a world-class, innovative, culturally inclusive environment. Staff in this group work with departments as assigned resources. The elements that support employee and labor relations are integrated in employment and employment services and employee engagement and development offerings, from the conceptual steps verified through operations leadership, through legal and city manager office approval. Today, we're not going to focus on that. I want to be able to talk to you about what we're doing in terms of attracting and engaging and developing staff to meet current and future challenges. Although ELR is a very critical part of our operations, because of the challenges we identified last year, we're going to spend our time on how we're proactively addressing them. Let me refresh you on some of the challenges. Coming out of the pandemic, we were caught in a generational changeover, which presented challenges to the city of Lakeland, as well as to the American workforce. We're still living in the midst of the Pew Research Center's predicted 10,000 baby boomers a day turning 65 through the end of 2029. The makeover is more than numbers. It's about ensuring that the many new ambassadors of yours understand the business we are in. And every month, the city manager welcomes new hires, and he tells them that they are in the quality of life business and the importance of that mantle. And we remind them, or I remind them in terms of when we look at diversity, that they have all seen other cities that they can't tout quality of life. Quality of life isn't just words to the Lakeland staff. It has a meaning behind it from every department, and we know how we impact the quality of life. Transferring institutional knowledge has become an increasing challenge. Decreased applicant pools, candidate preferences, compensation issues, those things have also contributed to the environment we're operating in. 20 and 30-somethings delaying their entry into the workforce, missing out on somewhat critical skills, learning opportunities, experiences, being part of contributing to something bigger than themselves. Creating an orientation to public service for some and reinforcing that to others is an ongoing challenge for our staff as we bring new entrants into our team. We're applying different ways to engage employees, changing workplace dynamics, work from home, quiet quitting, ghosting, all of those things that you read about in the media. We've experienced some of those types of things, very few in the quiet quitting and the ghosting, but we've experienced work from home. And Cindy will talk a little bit about where we are in that process. It's so interesting that we've talked about the 20 and 30-somethings and the impact of them on the workforce. Since 2019, the AMA has been trying to raise, the American Medical Association has been trying to raise the level of adolescence to the age of 27. And I'm like, wait a minute, I got ripped off by about 9 or 10 years. I'm sure some of you probably feel the same way. But as those 9 or 10 years were critical to who we became as individuals and how we approach life. So we have to make sure that as we bring new entrants into the workforce, that we're making sure they're representative of what we need in the community. Every month, we go around and Sean has the new hires introduce themselves to us. Where are you from? What department are you in? It looks like it's an international group every month from all over the country, U.S. territories, and as well as internationally. And that's the Lakeland we live in. But that's what it needs to be a culturally inclusive, world-class community. These challenges for us, what's leveraging the pivot? Everybody knows a pivot's, okay, you got to change your plan. There's an impediment in front of you, you got to do something a little bit differently. We're going to adjust the academic realities. We're going to continue to challenge assumptions about our practices and adjust as required. We're going to enhance programs where it can be done cost-effectively without denigrating service, and cost-effectively enhance retention. Integrate supplemental development programs for leaders within the City of Lakeland platform, modify our rewards and recognition programs, and tap into and integrate resources. And this is critical because this is where it's not HR doing it to the organization. This is where, before we implement any change organizationally, that change is vetted through the operating departments. And specifically, they are asked, shoot holes in this. Tell us what we don't see. How is this going to impact you at the airport, Parks and Rec? We don't want to have one-offs. Tell us what it is before we go to the city manager and there's dissension that he has to kind of quell, and we don't have the ability to offset that. So it's an integrated team process by which we've been looking at policies and practices and bringing things further into the 21st century. This is kind of the one minor slide that I'll talk about in terms of the generations. If you look at the representation of the various generations in the workforce in 2018 and what it is today, you can see how that influx of the Generation Z, those born 1996 and beyond, has increased 408%. That's a lot of integration. It's not just that they're sitting alone behind desks, but they're the ones oftentimes that are interfacing with our public. So that's why not only do we teach the what, but we teach the how, because there's a mantle and a standard that has to be maintained. And you can see we could continue to, baby boomers are continuing to exit the workforce, as are the GI generation. Lost institutional knowledge. This gets at culture. This is vested employee separations over the last 5.5 fiscal years. And the first box is years of City of Lakeland knowledge lost through vested employees. Kind of peaked in FY21. FY21, if you recall, I showed you a graph 2 years ago, and we talked about it some with Sean, where we peaked with about 72 people just leaving from drop alone. Now drop went to 45 last year, we're 33 year to date. So we think we've hit our peak there. We've extended drop, so it's going to be a much more gradual process. But you can also see the average years of service represented. And when you lose that level of service and commitment to the organization and to the community, we try to make sure that we're doing the right things to bring people in appropriately and responsibly. That's a lot of years of service, 13,805 years. So today's focus areas focuses primarily on these three things: customized sourcing to meet the needs of the organization, enhanced integrated selection processing and skills enhancement, and on our leadership, and that effective collaboration that they've committed to having a world-class team. We've tried to maintain a reputation and validate how are we doing, where are we getting people from. I'm pleased to tell you, a year and a half ago, we started looking at boomerangs, people who have left, tried new environments, and said, whoa, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. In the last 1.5 fiscal years, we've had 60 boomerangs. We also have 7% plus of our new hires are referred by friends and family. People don't tell their friends and family to go to work someplace where they're not going to be treated appropriately for fear they may end up on their couch. So that speaks volumes. Along those same lines, we have many married couples and many family members that work here. That speaks volumes about the culture that you've established and the one that we're very protective of as a function. So today, I'm pleased to turn it over to Cindy and let Cindy walk you through what we're doing with Employment and Assessment Services doing.
Mark, and welcome, Cindy.
Good morning. I'm going to talk to you today about some of the global challenges that everyone is facing throughout the world, especially when it comes into the employment arena. In January, Forbes magazine published an article and talked about 6 of the top things that employers are faced with currently in staffing. One is the skills gap that still remains. We also have the Great Resignation, the shifting of our demographics, our lengthy hiring processes, our quiet returning, and also our need for college graduates as well as pipeline. Over the next couple slides here, I am going to explain to you where we're currently at and what we're trying to do to overcome some of those things. So as part of the skills gap component, there is a lack of qualified candidates. As you can see on this slide, we received in fiscal year 20, approximately 9,500 applications. That is not qualified candidates, that is just applications that we received. The next line there shows that less than half of those candidates were actually qualified. So based on our 325 offers that we extended, we had about 29 applications, 12 of those being qualified. As you fast forward to currently in our fiscal year now, we have 531 offers we've extended this fiscal year, which puts it at 16 applications and only 8 qualified candidates per offer. So as you can see, those skills are drastically declining. The number of applicants are declining as we're faced with some of these challenges of finding people for our positions. So as part of the skills gap remains, one of the things that candidates complain about is the job requirements are way too narrow and there's too specific to qualify for. So to overcome some of those things, we are evaluating all of our job descriptions as we post those jobs. We're making sure that the job description accurately reflects the job, and also the minimum qualifications represent what we need first day essential. Not necessarily what we can teach those candidates, but what is required on day one. So some of those things that we've had to do is adjust some of those minimum qualifications. So for example, in one of our departments in job classifications, it required a high school diploma. We looked at the job description and realized that it only requires an 8th grade education to perform the essential functions on day one. So we lowered those minimum qualifications to an 8th grade education. Now we've been fully staffed in that job classification, where in the past couple of years we were not able to even fill those positions and we were struggling on an operations standpoint. We're also looking at our educational requirements. Are they too narrow? For example, do you need a marketing degree or would a business degree apply, as long as you had the years of experience? So we're looking at each one of those as we post those to be able to broaden that candidate pool and accept more people in consideration for those positions. We've also changed our civil service equivalency requirement. Prior, the civil service equivalency requirement required at least half of the education to qualify, and you could substitute the other half with years of experience. We have lowered that they can substitute all the years of educational experience down to a high school diploma, as long as they have the represented years of experience to substitute that for. So for example, if you have someone that's been doing the job for 30 years, but they only have a high school diploma, they can now qualify. So as part of that process, we put in place where they would have to validate through a third party our educational requirements to make sure that they truly have the education that they state they have on the application. The Great Resignation. This has been a big topic over the last couple of years. Employees are leaving for financial choices, flexibility, and support from their employer. As inflation goes up, the dollar is not stretching as far, so employees make the move to make more money now. They want to know what's in their paycheck when it comes out at the end of the week. To stay competitive in the market, these are 3 things that we have been doing to try to combat some of those struggles. We are currently in the process with a third-party provider to administer a general wage study. So we are in the final stages. We're getting ready to get those results. For the employee wage study. These are just for the general employees. We have also been in union negotiations. We completed police and fire, and we are currently in water and electric's union negotiations to look at their wages. That's the process that we look at some of their actual agreement as well as their wages to make sure that they are competitive in the market. And thanks to all of you, we have also in fiscal year 23, we had a 5% across the board and a 2.5 merit increase, which is 7.5% for our employees, which helps us to stay competitive in the marketplace. As individuals are leaving the jobs for the bottom dollar, we have struggles with our offers. So as we are offering positions, we are noticing that our number of declines are also increasing. As you can see in fiscal year 20, we extended 325 offers. We only had 6 declines, which is 1.85% of our offers declined. Currently, year-to-date in fiscal year 23, we've extended 531 offers, but we've had 80 declines, which is now up to 15% of our offers being declined. I tried to represent here what that dollar impact is financially for the city. SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resource Management, determines that a cost of hire is $4,700. That money is made up of what time we'd have to pay overtime, the cost of hiring, the hiring manager's time, if we had to hire contractors, and to equate that with the 80 offers that were declined, that comes out to $376,000 that it cost us because we're faced with all of these declines. As we are hiring people, the money piece of it is also consideration, but we also have to consider the compression if we bring in individuals at a higher rate coming in of what the impact that has from a compression standpoint internally with our current employees. So we are looking at that and hoping some of the wage study will help address that. Also, one of the things that Forbes talked about was the shifting demographics. By 2025, over 75% of workers will demand hybrid or remote work. The city recently did a pilot for hybrid work model. They utilized payroll, information technology, customer billing, and accounts payable. Since the pilot, the city has adopted the hybrid work model, and we have set in place guidelines to make sure that the individuals qualify and we're still providing that high level of customer service for our public-facing positions. Currently, we have 3.3% of our workforce that is taking advantage of this hybrid work arrangement. As another method to be able to still provide the customer service that our residents deserve, we have also put in place an alternative work schedule and flexible schedule. That basically means that anything that is not the traditional 8 to 5 work schedule. So it may represent things like 4 10-hour shifts versus the 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. We have 23% of our workforce that is currently utilizing an alternative work schedule. These are just some of the ways that we are trying to overcome some of these struggles. This is a new program currently in place, so we've not been able to see the impacts currently from those in our numbers. The next struggle that we're having is our long hiring processes. Everyone is faced with making sure they want the right candidate for the position and vetting that process thoroughly. Some of the things that we have done to try to overcome the long hiring process is we had in HR 2 departments, assessment services and employment services. And the candidate would be evaluated through the hiring process to see if they met the minimum qualifications through employment services. Then the candidate would be passed over to assessment services for any pre-employment testing. During that pre-employment testing, they would bring the candidates in, test them, and then they would get put back over to employment services. We've actually combined that so it's a seamless process for the candidate. There's no wait time. There's one point of contact for both candidate and hiring manager. We've also reduced the time to create promotional assessment centers for both police and fire. Previously, to create an assessment center, their testing process is made up of several different tests. It took us approximately 6 months to create those tests. We have it down between 9 and 12 weeks now to create those promotional testing processes. We've also providing pre-employment testing online. So a lot of our pen and paper tests have been converted to an online. We send them a link. They're able to take it from the comfort of their home. This reduces scheduling time that we're taking away from our employees that could be evaluating candidates by them not having to come in and proctor those tests. They're not having to take off extra days of work, the candidates. So this has been we've seen a lot. Before, our actual participation was about 50% when it was on site of people showing up, and that has went up to about 65% of taking them online from the comfort of the home. So we are seeing more from that. Also reducing testing requirements. As we're going through and we're posting the jobs and looking at the job description, we're actually looking to see, do we really need this test? Or is this something that we can vet out in the interview process and slim down our hiring processes? So we have eliminated several of our tests that we've been able to implement by asking the questions in the behavioral interview. As part of the behavioral interviews, we have created a class called Selecting Excellence, and we launched that in March of 2018. And we've trained 426 supervisors on how to properly do behavioral interviewing. Also, our drug test and background checks. We have taken out some of the processes there. Our drug test results used to go to our on-site clinic, Everside, to be evaluated, and then they would go in our applicant tracking system to say they passed or failed. Also, our background checks would go over to LPD. They would actually evaluate the background check. They would go into our applicant tracking system and say if they passed or failed. Now both of those results come directly to us, and we're able to move along on the process just by evaluating them as soon as they come in and going on to the next step in the process. We've also taken employment services and we've divided them into 2 teams. And those teams have their assigned departments. So we've taken the city and also divided the departments into 2. That is to be able to provide the hiring manager one point of contact, and also for our team to understand the business needs and business model of those individuals and be able to source their candidates properly based on their needs versus having, it may have be one person one time that they recruit and somebody else handling it the next time. The quiet returning. Increasing numbers of retirees are returning to the workforce because of inflation rates to supplement their retirement income. We have actually had to implement other recruitment strategies to attract some of these retirees coming back into the workforce. As you can see, this is kind of our generational chart here, and Mark mentioned it earlier, but on the far right, the number of hires since fiscal year 22 is made up of these generations. As you can see, almost 10% of our hires since fiscal year 22 came from the baby boomers and the GI generation. So they are returning back to the workforce. Some of those tactics that we've had to use is what the private industry calls headhunting tactics. So we are not now looking for what they call the passive candidate. The passive candidate is that candidate that's not necessarily out there looking for a job opportunity, but they're willing to entertain one if it's the right opportunity for them. So to give you an example of one of the headhunting tactics that we used is we currently have a traffic engineer position open. And that position requires a professional engineering license in civil engineering. So I reached out to the state licensing agency and asked them for a list of all first and last name and email addresses of everyone in the state of Florida that had a professional engineering license in civil engineering. Then we created job ads and sent out advertisements to all of those individuals throughout the state that were licensed in the state of Florida to attract for our traffic engineer. We're also utilizing contracting temporary agencies to bring back retirees to fill some of the gaps, even if they're just temporary while we're trying to fill these positions. The final challenge that forums mentioned is the need for college graduates and pipeline programs. Employers globally plan to hire more college graduates this year. They anticipate approximately 15% more college graduates to help fill their staffing needs. Thanks to all of you, we added recently 10 additional internship opportunities, and many of those internship opportunities are being utilized in all of our departments. You see them throughout the city getting great opportunities for projects and hands-on experience, and hopefully we'll be able to retain them long-term. We also have a great presence in the high school and middle schools with our Power Academies and our 911 Dispatch Academies. Since 2009, we have hired 26% of our students that have successfully completed the Power Academy. We are also currently this summer and summers prior have a STEM program that Trinice McGriff actually heads up and goes out into our youth programs in the community, as well as heads up Big Brothers Big Sisters. These are programs that are letting youth know exactly what services the city offers, giving them exposures to the community, as well as employment opportunities long-term. We also utilize a platform called Handshake. Handshake is a website designed to post opportunities in numerous colleges with a click of a button all over the world. So it allows us to attract candidates not only just for our internship opportunities, but it also allows us to reach out to alumni for some of our hard-to-fill positions. So we have been utilizing Handshake recently to be able to track some of those individuals. We understand that the pipeline is not what's in the long-term process, but it is paying off. completely with all of our programs that we're doing. We're giving a lot of youth a lot of exposure and bringing them to awareness of how our community operates. And with that.
Thank you, Cindy. Oftentimes, we talk about the employment and assessment and the acquisition of talent, but we really don't do a deeper dive into the employee. How do we take all of this talent that Cindy and the managers are generating and plugging them in this pipeline? What do we do with them? How do we come up with a style? What is our style of going to market in terms of our employees, our leadership? And particularly pleased to have Kathy McNellis walk you through what we've done the last 5 to 6 years to make some pretty significant changes, and changes that will lead us to world-class status. So, Kath?
All right.
Kathy.
Thank you very much. Again, Kathy McNellis. I've been over here in Human Resources for about 7 years, was at Lakeland Electric for 13 before leaving almost 2 decades in the private industry. So I'm pleased to be here in front of you. So when I came over to Mark's organization, again, my focus is internal. So once they're on board, what are we going to do to continue to invest in our talent and retain and recognize our talent? And I noticed a very distinct gap, especially watching numerous city commission meetings and budget meetings, that there's always a strategic focus on investing in property, investing in infrastructure, investing in equipment, but to me, a noticeable lap in investing in our people, investing in our future to create a diverse pipeline for the future. So together with Mark and my very talented team, we pivoted to reinvent our paradigm for assimilating, for developing, for coaching, and for recognizing employees. And we did that in a number of different ways that I'm going to share at a very high level here this morning. One, we did a transformational migration away from the traditional brick and mortar training and development learning to something that is called the 70-20-10 model. This is what is predominantly focused on adult learning, which is what we've got here. The 70% learning paradigm focuses on experiential learning, actually putting the talent, putting the leaders in positions where they can get in on a task force, on a special project, and be stretched to be actually able to do hands-on kinds of things. The 20% focuses on coaching. We're talking internal coaching here, either through their supervisor or some other manager who is giving them constructive feedback so that they stay streamlined and are able to grow and develop accordingly. And then finally, the 10% is the traditional classroom model. They might be in a classroom, they might be reading a book, they might be attending a conference. So that was the foundation for the transformation. We integrated recognized best practices from around the world, one of which was focusing on talent versus tenure. When we look at promoting and developing folks, we looked at talent pools versus heir apparent, and introduced some gamification to be able to lighten up some of the intense learning. We leverage heavily the voice of the customer, which is a Sterling Award best practice, which requires rigorous training needs analysis and listening, as Mark said, listening to our organizations, the operations, and what do they need to continue to be successful in terms of their people and talent strategy. Our programs align with the vision, mission, and values, and we partner frequently with the city manager's office and our department heads to anchor engagement and commitment. The programs that we offer, and that we'll just share again at a very high level here today, are not plug and play. They're not purchased from vendors and implemented. They're customized to the city of Lakeland. All right, so the first thing we do after Cindy gets them on board for us is we assimilate these new hires. That is, introduce them to our culture, introduce them to our expectations. And we do this to try to amplify the new hire experience. On a monthly basis, we offer a 3-day event that includes sharing the city's vision, mission, and values, and expectations for being a public servant. The city manager's office and department heads partner with us in terms of delivering that program. During the 3 days, they also complete their mandatory 5 courses. They are enabled to engage in one-on-one sessions for enrollment in their benefits, pension, and deferred compensation choices. And then we follow up with them with something that we call boosters to reinforce key takeaways, such as the quality of life that is stressed by Sean during the onboarding from presentations to reinforce retention, so that it's not just a one-and-done event. Then we'll move on to talent and leadership development. And if I want to share a quote that we use in a lot of our programs, what if we develop our employees and they leave? What if we don't and they stay? So think about that. During the 6 years we've been here, I've been here with, again, a very talented team, very diverse team. We've designed and implemented and customized a leadership series for employees who are brand new to supervision. We're actually about to start our 15th series. There's 7 modules in each series, and we have 236 proud graduates from that particular program. We introduced what we consider a top shelf program, which is called 48 Hours Invest in You. This program was designed and implemented and customized as a leadership immersion program, heavy on the 70% experiential. It's for mid-level managers. We've had 56 graduates so far out of the 4 programs that we've run. And we have Sean and the city manager's office, as well as several department heads who co-sponsor the content areas and come into the program and speak with and partner with the folks that are going through. And it's heavily vetted. This is not a raise your hand, I want to go take this. The vetting process goes all the way up through Sean and the city manager's office. And so far it has been extremely successful. As of January 1, we just designed and launched a workshop series called Get Real. The REAL stands for Resilient, Energized, and Agile Leadership, which is focused on expanding talents of leaders in the areas of creating a culture of accountability, navigating difficult conversations, servant leadership, big picture thinking, and developing employees. And this, again, came out of rigorous training needs analysis that we had conducted. Continuing on, I want to share another small quote that helped drive us. This is from John Maxwell. Leadership development is a lifetime journey, not a quick trip. So it's not that you take a program, you watch it, go to a conference and so forth, and you're done. So we've introduced a number of things for ongoing lifelong learning for these leaders that we're investing in. One, we've introduced LinkedIn Learning, which is owned by Microsoft. This is a 24/7, just-in-time online self-paced learning platform with over 17,000 courses and offerings in a micro-learning format. Right now, we've purchased 400 licenses. We have about 325 that are actively being used. So again, the employees who have licenses, we're also able to curate customized playlists based on their needs and what their manager wants them to work on. And we look forward to continuing to leverage that. We have created and facilitated what we're calling alumni leadership and networking forums to reinforce, again, that lifelong learning and the connectivity, the networking of the managers and supervisors who've attended both the New 2 Supervision and the 48-hour leadership program. We've conducted 3 of these this year. They are not mandatory, but the folks that do come are those that are clearly interested in continuing to invest in themselves and connect with others across the divisions within the city. And third on here is we've recently, again, as of January 1, enhanced our tuition reimbursement program to support those seeking academic degrees. We've increased their annual reimbursement amount by $500 per year, and we've eliminated the 1-year waiting period. They are now eligible to take advantage of this program on day 1 of their employment. All right. The next area that our group works in is organizational development. And for those of you that are familiar with this heavily focuses on organizational culture and norms. How do we do things around here? How can we help improve our team? We provide internal consulting, and again, I've got some OD professionals on my staff. I've got professional trainers, professional facilitators, professional folks in instructional design. And what we are able to do is go out and internally consult and coach leadership and work groups for a number of different venues, whether it's to enhance productivity, to set and clarify expectations within their work group and department, to better foster collaboration, to improve communications, and to facilitate team building activities. And I won't deep dive into more of that. Related, but what is not as up here, is our group was also tapped to develop and to deliver transitional assistance workshops when we had the Unit 3 shuttering and other departments that have had to downsize their staffs for a variety of reasons. So our group was the ones who went out and helped them, in some cases, actually build a resume, develop their resume, and prep for interview skills and haven't been in that particular market for a while. And I think that was pretty well received. All right. Then we switch over now to how do we recognize all of our employees. And one is through our Service Milestone Award program. We have recently revamped this to include 2 additional milestone. So milestone service anniversaries is basically how recognizing years of service with the city. We've revamped it to include 2 additional milestone anniversaries, which enabled us to essentially double the number of employees that we recognize annually. We increased the monetary amounts for all of the milestone years with existing budgetary dollars. So there was no budgetary impact to be able to do that. Yet we've been able to double the number of folks. We upscaled the celebration and breakfast and transitioned to an annual event, streamlined the gift selection and distribution process, and under the jurisdiction of Sean and the city manager's office, we have recently, this was in March, planned, coordinated, and hosted the Makeup Service Award celebration and breakfast, because the folks that reached their milestone in 2020, 2021, and 2022 didn't get to have one because of COVID. So we were able to pull that off and invited 388 current employees to attend. So it was a pretty massive undertaking, but I think, again, very well received. Continuing on with rewards and recognition, we currently have a program that's called Values in Progress, VIP. This is a peer-to-peer, non-refereed program where employees and managers can recognize somebody for living the values, our SLICE values: social responsibility, leadership, integrity, commitment to excellence, empowered workforce, and diversity. And we're going to continue with that. Again, there's no refereeing, so if I wanted to recognize Deidre for something that she did, again, it's just a submittal, and then she gets recognized with a certificate, and it's posted on Insight for the entire world to see. And right now, we have just finished presenting to Sean and to Emily within the last 2 or 3 weeks an expanded portion of our rewards and recognition program, which will be called Above City Expectations. So we've got the final approval. We've got the details that are still under construction, but this will be a refereed process. There will be defined criteria for what meets going above and beyond in terms of being a world-class ambassador, and as well as keeping the Heroism Award. So with this, all we hope to do is to continue to engage and develop a diverse pipeline of talent and future leaders. I could not do this without my very talented staff and the support of Mark. And I want to close with one more quote by Simon Sinek. Leadership is the acceptance of the awesome responsibility to create an environment in which people can work at their natural best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy.
Kathy, thank you, Cindy. Your Honor, questions, Commission?
Yes, Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mark and team. We appreciate that update. I had a question about the hybrid work arrangement and the percentage. And Cindy, you mentioned that is a growing expectation among employees in virtually every sector. Do we see potential to grow that number within the city of Lakeland? I know you said it's been in a pilot and that's ongoing, but I'm just curious how
More than likely, not very significantly. We've had to remind our employees, we are in the public service business, and people who pay our salaries expect us to be here and be working. The groups that Sean and the data says can support this, accounts payable, payroll, do it, finance, customer billing, are all very well documented on their productivity. And the connectivity to the organization it's an unbroken string. Sean took a field trip, and 4 or 5 of us went down to the first floor to visit somebody who was in the pilot, and the manager just pulls her up. I have an individual that's on a type of remote work environment. I go on the phone, hit Teams, and let's talk, let's walk through this. So not likely is it going to go It's 3.3. If we hit 5, I would be very surprised. But remember, you can't pick up trash from home. You can't cut grass from home. There's a lot of stuff that we can't do from home, and it's just the nature of the beast. And even the experts predicted the public sector would be the slowest and the last to move this way. So our slow approach, I think, was the right thing to do for who our customers are.
Makes sense. Thank you, Mark. I just, thinking of threats and being at a competitive advantage or disadvantage in this case, how can we maximize that? And I know there are, as you mentioned, there are certain jobs where you can't do them from home, but that does, as we're thinking of competing with other markets and sectors, it's a reality we have to navigate, so.
And
yeah.
one of the things we're doing, Commissioner, is rather than management looking at it and saying, no, you can't do it, we ask the employees to walk through a process where they're looking at their job description and the essential functions of their job. And we all ask, how can you do this from home? And what's my verification that a project you're working on that you've got 6 months to work on didn't get done in the last 2 weeks? And everything else is project. So it's those types of things.
Additionally, if I may, thank you, Mark. Great response to that. But just, so there's no confusion, we're out of the pilot program now. And so it is available and based on departmental and division levels, if the managers feel that they have work groups that could work from home, then there's the ability for them to apply for the program, go through a vetting process, and it can be expanded.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. I have several questions, and they're going to be fairly simple, I think. In reference to skill level, are we finding our deficiencies in reading, math, or physical capacity? Which area would you think is the biggest area that we have trouble with?
All of them. All of them.
I guess that
Okay.
would be your answer.
And we had some discussion on that. Should we put those proficiencies up? But they're not good, and we didn't want to stimulate that discussion. I mean, so it's all across the board.
All right, thank you. Number two, about how many people take advantage of our college tuition assistance program?
I would say less than 200, and I would tell you that 75% of them are within Lakeland Police Department and Lakeland Fire Department.
We raised that, what, 2,500 now? Is that it?
2,500, and we moved it from a wait of 1 year to first day eligibility. A young family struggling today can't put that money out. And they want to do it, but now they got to wait till I've been here a year. Well, if they want to start right away, we will support that. But if they leave, then they still have to pay back that portion that the city paid, so.
Do we hire felons, or do we have people with some minor blemishes on their?
Absolutely. One of the first things Sean did was ask Cindy and I to take a look at Ban the Box, and we implemented that early in 2021, boss. Early in 2021, we may have 2 to 4 reviews a year where there's a background, and they're good questions, and we've hired some.
And then, about how many people do we have that transfer from one department to another for upward mobility?
Internal transfers, Cindy?
I don't have an exact number, but I would say probably, if I had to guess, about 35%.
35%?
35% of those.
And
And
then,
we have, Commissioner, we have that data. We can pull that. We just don't have it at our fingertips at
okay,
the moment. We can get that.
that's fine. And then my last question, is there anything that the city commission can do that tool that we can give you that we haven't given you other than money that would assist you in hiring and getting retention and upward mobility in our employees?
I think it's economics, but it's also looking at what the departments need. It's not just HR as standalone, but what makes sense for them to make some of their business processes easier. I mean, in the last 8 years that I've been here, 9 in a couple of weeks, I've not asked for something that I didn't get, and it's now we've got a transformation to take place, so we'll make sure we can stay the course.
Thank you.
Commissioner McCarley.
Thank
you, Mark. This was really well done, and Kathy and Cindy, you guys covered so much ground. I just had a couple questions too. And Cindy, I think you answered this. I don't know if you want to come to the mic. But with regard to broadening the application process, and are we looking at, were some of the difficulties in finding the right matches and some of the tweaks that you've made in education and experience, were they sort of algorithm related? So if we're processing things that go online, like you're doing an application online, then the algorithm is only catching certain keywords in a resume, or how is that? Why were we missing out on some of those things before you went in and like readjusted qualifications?
Sure. So we actually review every single application that comes in physically because of veterans' preference. We have to make sure that we are validating that they are qualified or not. We cannot use our applicant tracking system, even though it has the capability, to be able to screen for those keywords or answers to questions, those types of things. So what has changed is we changed the minimum qualifications that are first day essential versus nice to have. And those can be drastically different. So by lowering those minimum qualifications and then putting in programs like Kathy has to develop our employees once they come on board, that is what's kind of helped to bring on more people.
Thank you. That really is helpful. And I'm glad you brought up the Handshake platform too. I actually texted my college-age student, said, have you heard of this? And she said, no. So she's looking at it right now. And I think that's a great tool as well. And then for Kathy, when we're talking about all of these, if you want to come up, sorry. I know y'all are so comfortable in the chairs. Thank you, Cindy. With regard to all of our measurements and all of our, programming we're doing through modules, and I think most of my peers know I just wrapped up a Presidential Leadership Scholar program where we talked a lot about, we had module learning, we had homework before all of our modules. We had 6 different ones. And then we also had, our actual in-person meetings and cultivating leadership skills and talking about communication skills. What is the personal element from the HR department that you're encouraging through the other departments of this coaching? I mean, modules are great and online is great, but what are we doing from a personal standpoint to really take care of our staff and how they're doing and seeing what their needs are versus what they're kind of filling out on a data mark or on a survey or anything like that? What are those personal connections that are happening maybe organically and not organically throughout the organization?
Okay, let me focus on at least the new shoe supervision and the 48 hours programs because they're the ones with the traction at this point. We keep those programs intentionally small. My personal cap is 12 because I don't want people sitting in there and thinking they can just put their head down and not play. We have an orientation session where we set the expectations that this is not like a daycare where you're going to drop them off and then they'll just go back, to their job and so forth. We engage their managers with us and encourage pre and post conversations after each module about what they've learned, how can the manager support it, and so forth. When they finish their programs, and we do this especially in the new two supervision, after each module, they pick out one key area that they want to talk about and refine with their supervisor. But my staff goes out 30 days after and 60 days after for follow-ups with the employee and with the manager to see how much progress have we made, what else can we be doing, et cetera, et cetera. And then we go back out at 90 days. And then finally, what we do is we have a booster program, which are follow-up emails about key content areas that were covered in that particular topic. And they are required to complete those successfully at 80% to, again, be able to graduate from the program. So it's not catch and release. It's we've got them, and then we will do periodic follow-ups with them, both formally and informally, because sometimes those grow, Commissioner, into organizational opportunities, organizational development opportunities.
That's great. I think that's also tapping into the culture. So making sure that we have a healthy and productive culture as far as having personal relationships of, it's hard. You have so many staff members and you cover so many areas. So it's a big challenge, I think, for you all and for each department head to make sure that those personal relationships, are really healthy and that you're looking at some potential employees who might be younger that you think, oh my gosh, they don't have it on their resume yet, but they really have an aptitude for X. Let's make sure we cultivate that. And I love the idea of recapturing, to Cindy's point earlier too, some of our baby boomers and, our other earlier generation coming back, circling back into the workforce because there's so much wisdom in those two generations to really provide all of our team. So thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Mayor.
If Kathy, while you're there, if I can tap into her point a little, just one more
Sure.
piece. The transformation to the 70-20-10, really we're talking about the 20% piece. How, as an employee, are we going to give them an opportunity to be able in their evaluations to talk about how effective that 20% is, that coaching piece that's designed for them?
Certainly, and again, it's internal coaching. We're not talking about external coaches that we bring in from the outside. And at least the way it works with my staff is we look for that connectivity, as the commissioner was just saying, because some people just gel if they've been in a particular program, and they may gravitate toward one of my consultants versus another to be able to do that. But sometimes we get the request from a manager or a supervisor saying, this person really is aspiring to a different level, and that's their trajectory. Would you be able to work and coach and give them constructive feedback going forward? And again, we adapt what we've got in terms of our toolkit to their requests, their needs, and their organizational challenges that they might have. So.
Manager Sherrouse.
Thank you. Additionally, we are continuing to have conversations with our employees, and we're listening to our employees, and a lot of what you've heard this morning is the results of that. So even when we're talking about at an awards level, and this is a perfect team to have before you today, because when I went and met with individual work groups and we talked about, hey, how would you like to be recognized? What would be meaningful to you in terms of recognition for the good jobs that you do? And they told us that the VIP awards previously, the ones that I know you've all attended when we used to do the quarterly, pizza luncheons and celebrations, they didn't feel like that was effective. That's not what they wanted. And so Kathy alluded to it earlier. We are now adjusting how we're going to recognize those employees. And some of what they talked about was, they do a lot of work. We do a lot more with a lot less nowadays. And so they would like some time off from time to time. And so we've got a program that we're about to roll out that's going to be able to do that. In terms of even the training and some of the platforms that were mentioned here today, that also, some of that came out of meeting with the different work groups, because what we heard from the employees was, hey, we've got a lot of training opportunities for upper level management, but what about specific skills training for employees who are trying to develop so that they can get to those supervisory or management levels? And so the LinkedIn Learning platform and the other platforms that you learned about today is intended to address those needs that we heard from our employees.
Excellent. Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you for the presentation. Excellent presentation. Had one item that somewhat concerned me. I would like to address it. You mentioned that with regard to your reducing minimum qualifications from high school to 8th grade, in that particular one. My concern is that we certainly don't want to disincentivize the attainment of a high school education. So what's your justification? In any way, can you rationally justify that?
It's limited to particular classifications, Commissioner. We don't want to disincent them, but if they're in the market and they see a standard that they cannot reach where they are, they're not going to apply at all. If we get them in there, we treat GED applications just like a higher ed application. Let us help you get that GED.
That's
but we're
great.
not going
That's kind of what I was looking for.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Yes,
would
sir.
be great. Yeah, thank you.
And Commissioner, if I may, just on that, that's also been out of necessity. We've got a few particular areas in the organization where it is difficult to have enough staff to do a very important job for the community. So we've had to adjust to be able to have enough people, but again, without the intent there is not to disincentivize the idea of a high school education or GED.
Commissioner Madden.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, HR team. Most of my colleagues have asked most of the questions. I don't know if you mentioned this or if I just missed it. You mentioned the 3.3% of the remote and then additional opportunities now that we have the pilot successful. I'm just curious on the declined offers, if those were surveyed in particular. So I'd be curious to see if it would be, lack of remote options or PTO or flex time. To me, when I speak to that out of college or the workforce looking, that is the big competition, right? How much PTO, if you can work remote, and how many, your flex time working a 412 or whatever.
Commissioner, it varies from all of those things you said to, I don't like this job. Or I don't want to start, I don't want to start work at 8 o'clock. I'm serious. It varies for all those reasons. And people no longer feel they need to give you a reason if they don't want to. It's like, no, it's not where I'm going. Am I right, Cindy?
Yes, we do have a lot of it that is pay.
To be at the mic, Cindy, sorry.
We do have a lot of it that is pay and work hours related. And that's why we tried to focus on getting alternatives with a hybrid work model as well as alternative work schedules.
I know Mr. Farrington said it was definitely economics would be top of the list, but I actually, just even my own children graduate from college, the thing that they're looking at most is if they get a 3-day weekend or if they have, vacation options or remote work so that they can pick any city, close by that they can live and not have a long commute time.
And the numbers that were on the screen earlier, are showing that it's kind of the alternative work schedule, at least in the public sector here at the City of Lakeland, that's more preferred. But it's back to kind of Mark's point. We just don't have a lot of positions where operationally it can be done remotely. But, 4-10 type schedules where they do get a long, weekend from time to time in the way that cycles. And we, one of the things that when we started moving to alternative work schedules that I asked for was that we never have a lapse in coverage though. And so we have to work within the work group so that they're on staggered schedules so that they all get those long, weekends on a recurring basis, but also having 100% coverage for the city.
Our hybrid work arrangements are you're off Monday and Wednesday, Tuesday and Thursdays, Friday's team day, everybody's in the office, as Sean said, so.
Commissioner Simmons.
Just one final question. I realize we probably got other commission items to take care of, but just one final question. Do you know the overall position vacancy rate for the city?
Turnover rate is 6%. Cindy, what would you guess we have in open recs, about 40 right now?
I probably have between 60 and 70 open recs right now.
What, open recs, what do you mean by that?
That means that there's a vacancy that the department needs to fill currently.
You say you-
Positions available.
Oh, so you got about 60? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
This year, we have averaged, starting 30 people a month. For next Monday's onboarding, we have 40 people cleared
Wonderful.
with the possibility of getting another 5. So people are returning to work. We're seeing an uptick in quality, and we're hoping that people are returning back to work.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. And I have a daughter that has children, and I didn't know, do we hear a lot about daycare as a drawback in reference to employment?
No, not one of the things that usually hits my radar screen, and Cindy doesn't mention it's an issue. And one of the things, one final thing on hybrid work that we've had to help our other employees understand, it comes down to a matter of career choice, because for years, nobody wanted to be in payroll. Now that payroll gets to work at home 2 days a week, now, well, why can't I? Well, you chose to work in a customer-facing role where they have to come in and you have to do a transaction. So we're having to do some of those educational processes with folks, so. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you, and you can see there's a huge amount of interest in this, and so we thank you for the depth of the presentation and the work you guys have done in the last 2 years to really make this possible. Thank you.
Great job, team. Great job.
All right, that will bring us then to the consent agenda. And is there a motion to approve, which would...
For approval?
And a second?
Second?
Oh, sorry.
Pardon?
Vacation.
Oh, excuse me. You know what? I didn't see Bill Cohen, so that's the problem.
He's kind of.
You came in late, so I was actually going to pass that, sir, and so I apologize. Mr. Cohen, come on up. And I have your mic up here.
Morning, everybody, and we have 2 beautification awards this morning, as always. First up should be the residential award. Oh, okay, this is great, too. The award is given to Jamie and Charles Lee who reside at 840 Success Avenue. This is an historic house, incredibly well-maintained. It was built in 1921, and it's right in the heart of our Lake Morton Historical District. It's recently been beautifully re-landscaped, and beautiful flowers in the front, new shrubbery, new trees, so it's just a remarkable job the residents have done here.
The leads here?
Is anyone here to receive the award?
Right, sir. Thank you. It is a wonderful house.
It is, it's beautiful. To the commercial award next. This award goes to the Doggy Bag, a pet boutique located at 1702 East Edgewood Drive. It's been beautifully re-landscaped recently, all kinds of butterfly attracting plants, pentas, angelonias, plumbagos, and it's just a very colorful, low-maintenance landscape. It's a very great job on Edgewood there. So, anyone here to get this award this morning? Oh, great.
Very good. I just,
Face that way. You can turn around. There you go.
I'm not the official photographer. I'm just a friend. 1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Squeeze in together. All right, 3, 2, 1.
would you like to say anything?
I'm very proud of the award, and I'm very proud of the shop. It's beautiful, and it makes us smile every day we walk in the door, and we hear it from our customers. So thank you very much for the award. It's greatly appreciated.
Great job on it. It's a very attractive shop. Thank you.
Anyone would like to nominate someone for an award, just give me an email at bill.koen@lakelandgov.net. Thank you.
Bill, I'm sorry I didn't see you. I'm sorry I didn't see you sitting around the corner. I was searching for you, though, valiantly.
I've been here the whole time.
Oh, nice. Thank you. And thanks for your patience. We have no proclamations, and so that brings us to the consent, and we have a motion to approve in a second.
Second.
And then a discussion on those items, if there's any by the commission. If there are any questions by the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. We cease meeting as a commission, move into an equalization board, and we have an equalization hearing by our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city charter requires that the city commission convene as an equalization board prior to imposing a special assessment lien against private property when the city has had to clean or clear that property. So if you've received a notice to appear this morning related to the city cleaning or clearing your property and the imposition of a special assessment lien against you, this is your opportunity to address the city commission.
Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
And a second, discussion by commissioners or questions?
Glad to see there's only one up there this month.
It is very nice. I don't ever remember that. Any by the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. We cease to meet as an equalization board, reconvene as a commission, taking us to public hearings 3B1 with our city attorney.
Thank you. 3B1 is related to the equalization item. This is a resolution relating to assessments, determining the necessity for having cleaned and cleared certain properties within the city of Lakeland, providing for the assessment of liens against such property expenses incurred in the cleaning and clearing thereof, providing an effective date, and that is proposed resolution number 23-034.
Motion to approve.
And a second.
Second?
Second, discussion by commissioners. Any by the audience? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Simmons?
Aye.
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 And yes, on my part, being last.
Next is proposed resolution number 23-035, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lakeland, Florida, creating the Lakeland Youth Council, making findings, providing an effective date.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion approved in a second. Discussion by commissioners. Commissioner Madden?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Attorney Davis, for your work on the resolution, and also to Kelly Coos to work on the application. We were able to meet after the agenda study on Friday and come up with a few dates just for my colleagues to kind of think about. So we are shooting for, and I'll defer to Kelly if in fact she was able to get the application.
Kevin's office is working on the application this morning. I saw, yes, Friday was a long day, so I got it to Kevin really late Friday. So they're working on it this morning. So we should be able to get it out today or tomorrow to the schools.
Okay, so she will be sending the application to the schools, and certainly we know that this is, late in the year to be thinking about starting in the fall. But we still are hopeful and excited. In the resolution, if you read it, each of us will be able to nominate 2, and then that would be 14, and then there's up to 15. Now, we don't have to nominate 2. We could nominate 0. That is 15 is the maximum, up to 15. We're hoping, maybe to get at least 6, 10, or 15 this year. What it'll look like is that there will be, Kelly, we talked about an application deadline. Do you have that information in front of you that?
Give me 5 seconds, I'll bring it up. I have that schedule that we worked on.
Can I ask something really quick?
While-
Because I
while
missed
we're
all of
filling in.
this while
Yes,
we're
okay.
finding this. Is this compared to Florida League of Cities? Is this that similar kind of use? Okay, I just wanted some clarity on that. Just from the Randy Roberts Foundation, since we do,
Yes.
community classroom and things like that, and working with the schools, I just wanted to, I thought that's what it was for, was the tie into Florida League, which is great.
And I hate that you've been gone the 2 times it's been
I
talked
know.
about, because you would be excellent. Just in a recap while we're waiting for Kelly, under the Florida League of Cities, they do a Saturday Youth Day on their annual conference. Typically, that's out of town, and we're not really wanting to jump into an overnight or anything too costly or, lofty goals this year. So, but there could be there'd be a couple that could go just as a, foray into the year. They would not be sworn in. It would not start until September. But there is that Saturday on the Florida League of Cities. Now, the youth councils throughout the state, some have a big budget. They go to Tallahassee for their FLC day. We have 0 budget. This is just going to be a let's get started. And so we're thinking about a Saturday 2-hour retreat at the library to start it out in September, a swearing in at the middle September commission meeting. They would come and they would be sworn in as a youth council. Then there would be monthly meetings on the second Thursday from 4 to 5 in the afternoon in the chamber, so that they would learn about parliamentary procedure, there would be a chair and a vice chair, kind of like a mayor and a mayor pro tem, talk about issues. And then at the end of the year, their last meeting would be the May City Commission meeting, and they would present some type of, it could be a Parks and Rec amenity, it could be, so the Florida League of Cities also has like a video, there's some things that they could do like on their own to augment, but that's kind of the basic skeleton that we have together. We have the application and then these dates that to kind of get it started.
So we're going to send the application to the schools right away, but Commissioner Madden had talked about if any of the commissioners already had someone in mind who might be willing to serve, they could go ahead and fill out the application. And that could be one of your 2 appointments if you knew someone who you thought would be good. When we send it to the schools, we'll ask them to have the students apply by August 25th. So I think the principals are probably out for the month of July, so we'll remind at the beginning of August to try and get them to work with the kids, because I think the first day of school is August 11th. Aside from the application process, if there are some kids who are already wanting to be involved, and then Stephanie might ask them if they want to go with her to the Florida League of Cities for the Youth Council Day. It'll just be very informal if there are some who are interested and want to go. And then on September 9th, that Saturday will be the retreat with Commissioner Madden and the students who are going to serve on the council. And on the 18th is when they'll be sworn in at the commission meeting as part of the Constitution Month proclamation. And then they have monthly meetings from 4 to 5:30 in the chamber, with the exception of spring break because there's no school that week of the second Thursday. And then they'll make their presentation in May just before possibly half of them graduate and the new group takes over the next school year.
It'll be under municipal boards, so every year the mayor could put whomever commissioner on that youth council.
I'll push it out. I just have some students that just went with me to Tallahassee that would be perfect for this, that are within the city of Lakeland city limits. So I'll push that application to them. It's hard with the schools, especially over the summer. I know y'all probably already discussed that, but we have challenges with it, so.
That's what we thought. We're like, up to 15, but, we might need to ask your own children's friends, to get it rolling the first year. I don't know, maybe we'll have overwhelming, overwhelming interest.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. And I had suggested, I guess it's going to be for a 2-year term is my understanding. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, but we will be encouraged to have, kind of thinking about the mix of having seniors this year, and that'll be a natural roll-off.
I was thinking we might make a nominate for 1 year and a 2-year, so we wouldn't have everybody roll off at the same time.
right.
So it would be, I could make a nomination for 2 and a 1, vice versa. And of course, we would know a senior would be 1, obviously, or a junior would be 2, something like that. But it's just a thought.
Hopefully, that's right. Do you have something else, Commissioner McLeod?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Madden, thank you for moving this forward and bringing this to us. Thank you, Palmer and Kelly, for your help as well. But I'm excited to see what happens with it. In year one, it may not look like what it will in several years down the road, but I think it's a great program potentially to connect the city with youth, high school students, and involve them. And I'll be excited to see what they bring forward, because I know when I go and speak, now I've only done elementary, I think in middle school, but I always ask, what would you change in the city of Lakeland? What would you do? And it's interesting to hear ideas even from young students. So I think with high school students, as you know, Commissioner McCarley, a lot of them they're bright and they have great ideas. And so this is something that I'm excited to see what happens. Thank you for moving this forward.
I'll have to tell, Commissioner Walker asked me every year for the last 6 years to do this. So I feel like I owe it to him to at least get the ball rolling. So thank you, Commissioner Walker, wherever you are.
Any other commission comments? Any questions by any members of the audience? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner McLeod?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And so it unanimously passes. And that brings us to the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 3 items for presentation this morning. The first item is regarding an award of an RFP to Christmas Designers Florida. This is for the lease and installation of the holiday decorations, or many of the holiday decorations around the exterior of the Lakeland Electric Building and Lake Mirror Park. And just, there were some questions on Friday about that. There's a lot of those decorations that the city does own and installs, but some of the major elements that were mentioned, the Santa and the reindeer on top of the roof and the singing Christmas tree and some of those other decorations are handled through this process. For the RFP, the city did receive one proposal. Again, that's from Christmas Designers Florida, which is the company that we have been under contract with for several years. It was their response was evaluated and was considered to be responsive. The contract will be for $56,000 per year for 4 years, with an option to renew for 2 additional one-year terms. Funding is available in the Lakeland Electric operating budget. I was also asked on Friday about what we were previously paying in last year's contract. It was $55,000, so it's $1,000 more in the proposal before you today. And so it's recommended that the commission approve the award of RFP 2023-056 to Christmas Designers Florida as presented.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Madden. Any questions by commissioners? Any by the audience? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Item number B.
This is a recommendation regarding a task authorization with WSP Environment and Infrastructure Incorporated. This is for the East Bay Drainage Improvement Design and Permitting. This is for a need for stormwater drainage improvements. This is along East Bay and the surrounding neighborhood due to periodic flooding that occurs there. The WSP Environment completed a feasibility study in 2022, which identified various solutions, including the retrofit of some stormwater ponds and also roadway improvements for the intersection of East Bay and Lake Avenue. This will provide for improved drainage and flood hazard reduction. It will also provide for pedestrian access at that location. Major elements of the project have been identified by staff and consultants. And funding for the project is in the not-to-exceed amount of $126,735. It is provided in the fiscal year 2023 Stormwater Capital Improvement Program. And so the recommendation is for the commission to authorize the appropriate city officials to execute the task authorization with WSP Environment and Infrastructure as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions by commissioners? Any questions by the audience? Seeing none, this too is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5C.
Thank you. My third and final item is a recommendation regarding the award of a bid to RF Lusa and Sons Roofing and Sheet Metal, and this is for the replacement project at City Hall. The city did issue a request for bids. This is related to the constant leaking that we're experiencing in the building. The roof age is over 30 years old, and it has various different roofing components that have provided some challenges. The work that was outlined in the project and the construction documents and specifications were made aware to the consultant. The roof will include the installation of a new multi-ply modified membrane and new Spanish S-style clay roofing tiles. The one bid that was received was reviewed by the city's engineering consultant and city staff. We did contact that contractor's references. We did review the bid and schedule of values and confirm that the scope of work complies with the project requirements. The amount that was submitted for the award is $1,116,425. Funding is included in the Public Improvement Fund Capital Improvement Program for fiscal year 2023, and there is specifically a project for this city building roof replacement fund. There is no appropriation, therefore, that is required, so the recommendation is to award bid number 2023016 as presented.
Move to approve.
Second. A motion and a second. Questions or comments by commissioners? Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. I know we have a long duration for the product to be available. When do you anticipate that to start? Is it 40 weeks from when we get it? Are we going to do some preliminary work now? Brief insight, please.
Morning, Richard Baker, Public Works Facilities Maintenance. We are going to try to do as much work ahead of time while we're waiting on that. There's flat roof sections and other pieces of the roof that can be worked on while we're waiting for that tile to arrive.
Current leak in the spot we can immediately work on, or is that going to be?
Yes, that's going to be one of
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from commissioners?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
if I may, Commissioner Reed, I'm not sure if you're, what necessarily the question was related to. I just want to make sure, though, that you're aware and everyone's aware that there has already been work done with a temporary membrane that has been placed in some of the areas where we're experiencing the leaks. So I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for, but we've already sealed to the best we can, and there's been a lot of work done over the last several weeks. At this point, it seems to be successful because we did have some rain. We did not have the leaks come through that we had about 3 weeks ago.
Thank you, City Manager Strauss. Any other questions or comments? Questions or comments from the audience? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. City Attorney, we already approved that on consent agenda, item B1. This will bring us to the Finance Director, item 7A. Deidre.
Mayor Pro Tem, if
Hi.
I may, before Deidre presents the appropriation item on Friday at Agenda Study, there was a request for some information about our impact fees, and so Chuck Barmby is going to give just a brief discussion on that and then yield to Deidre for presentation of the item.
Thank you. Thanks, Chuck.
Good morning. For the record, Chuck Barmby with Community and Economic Development. And following up from our conversation on Friday, we just wanted to give you a very high-level briefing, hopefully 100 words or less, but the kind of the Cliff Notes version here is that the city collects impact fees for its own facilities, transportation, law enforcement, fire protection, and parks and recreation and library. It also collects impact fees on behalf of the county for transportation, corrections, EMS, as well as education facilities or the school impact fees. The county's impact fees were just raised on Saturday, and it's now based on, it's a phased approach, and then it's based also on which zone you're in within the county. And so thankfully, all but one parcel of Lakeland's in within the same zone, so that will make it easier for us. But the Parks and Recreation library fee, as well as the schools fee at the county, are only collected for residential facilities. So we wanted to highlight that. And then my last last slide here is just in terms of the lay of the land for impact fees is that they're governed by the Florida Impact Fee Act in Florida statute. Impact fees can only be collected for capital, not operations or maintenance. It has to be collected based on new demand for infrastructure, so we cannot use impact fees for existing deficiencies like level of service failures on roadways or parks or schools. The impact fee rates themselves are recommended through a fairly long process and an in-depth study for each impact fee that's conducted by the city or by the county. Over the next year, we will be kicking off our impact fee studies that were, the rates were last updated in 2019, so we'll be embarking on a new study for transportation, parks and recreation, law, fire protection coming up here over the next year. And the new studies will take about 9 months to complete. When they're completed, there will be a set of recommended rates that will be presented to the City Commission for action for each of those fees. We cannot collect more than the recommended rate, and we can collect less. And so that's where we take a look at the infrastructure needs and the other impacts of impact fee increases across the board and kind of come up with a number that's legally defensible and we can move forward with.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Barmby? Commissioner Reed.
Yesterday today, can you provide us with our current rate and our fees that we charge?
Absolutely. I'll send a link out to what we have.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, Chuck. We appreciate that.
Very much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and so we'll yield to our Assistant Finance Director for presentation of the appropriation item.
Good morning. Appropriation and increase in estimated revenues, Parks and Recreation District Impact Fee Fund, and Public Improvement Fund. During the May 15th City Commission meeting, the City Commission approved the selection of RADA Construction for the completion of Phase 3 of Lake Crago Park. Lake Crago Park is a 119-acre park located at 525 Lake Crago Drive in northeast Lakeland. The park currently has a dog park, restroom, boat ramp, recreation center, boathouse, and fishing dock. Phase 3 of Lake Crago Park will construct 3 competitive multi-purpose sports fields with sports field lighting, restroom, parking, and landscaping and irrigation. The total project budget is $2,987,828, with funding provided by Parks and Recreation District 1 impact fees, Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program grant funds, and the Public Improvement Fund. There is currently $1,990,143 appropriated from Parks and Recreation District 1 impact fees. This request is for the final appropriation of an additional $249,378 from Parks and Recreation District impact fees to the project, so the total appropriation matches the contract of $2,987,828. Therefore, it is recommended that the City Commission authorize staff to appropriate and increase the estimated revenue in the Public Improvement Fund from the District 1 Parks and Recreation Impact Fee Fund in the amount of $249,378 for the completion of Phase 3 of the Lake Crago Park project.
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion from commission? Any from the audience? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have no items under utility, and now we do open it up for audience comments. So if anyone here from the audience would like to address the commission, seeing none. Mayor and members of the City Commission, the one item we have before we go into comments is item 10A, voting for a delegate for our 2023 Florida League of Cities Conference. Do we have a nomination? Commissioner Madden, are you attending the conference? Yes. Commissioner Madden will be at the conference? Yes. Commissioner Reed?
I nominate Stephanie Madden for our position.
We have a nomination. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second from Commissioner Simmons.
Motion nominees deceased.
Okay. Second. Any comments from commission? Any from the audience? Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Madden, for
Yes.
being willing. She said on Friday she will be there, and you think you can run from the youth council session to the voting session, and we appreciate that.
Thank you for attending. We appreciate it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, Commissioner Madden. We do appreciate you always represent us so well at Florida League. And I'm excited to see how we move forward. And I promise next year I'll go. We have a wedding this year. So sorry. We'll tag in and out. You have my word. Okay. Any other comments from commissioners for the good of the order? Happy July 4th to everyone. I hope everyone attends Red, White, and Kaboom tonight. It's a great event. There are several events going on in and around downtown for this evening. I do want to highlight, for those of you who weren't there, Lakeland Regional on Wednesday afternoon had their residency program white coat ceremony out at Bonnet Springs Park, which was really a wonderful, wonderful event. For those of you that don't know, this will be the first time that we have, not the first time, but Lakeland Regional Health has a full-fledged residency program now that's been in the works for 10-plus years and working with our federal government to get that approved. So it's a really exciting time. As many of you know, we have a lot of need in primary care and specialists throughout Polk County in servicing our community, both in medicine and in dentistry, but this is strictly a medical program. We have several program directors, and it's a wonderful opportunity. I don't know how many, I was there and the mayor was there. There were a lot of white coats, maybe up to 30 to 35. People who are coming into our community, we are encouraging them to be in Lakeland, be a part of Lakeland, build their not only career here, but their families here. So we're excited to do that in partnership with Lakeland Regional Health. That was a very, very encouraging afternoon and also a very long ceremony. I see Ms. Wiggins from Chamber of Commerce. I'm not sure what time they finished, but yeah, so 2.5-hour ceremony of presenting the white coats, but it was very exciting. So I'm glad that we were able to do that. Anything else? Happy 4th of July. We will adjourn this meeting.